Everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of What CD is Rob listening to. And this time we go to 1998 and an album called Van Halen 3. And it is the most polarizing studio album in the Van Halen catalog. Is it because Sammy Hagar is gone, replaced with extreme singer Gary Cherone? Not necessarily. I think people had high hopes for his time with the band, especially after the lead single Without You came out, and it was a hard-rocking Van Halen tune through and through. Was a lackluster response a result of the fact that Michael Anthony appeared on only 3 of the album's 12 tracks? Again, not necessarily, although the songs he does play on, Without You, When I Want, and Fire in the Hole, are the best on the album. I think that what this album suffered from the most was the fact that it is less a Van Halen album and more of an Eddie Van Halen solo album. Although Eddie was definitely the most prolific member of this classic rock powerhouse, I think that somewhere along the way he lost sight of the fact that every member of this band was important. But not only does he take all guitar playing over this time around, because I believe Sammy played a guitar part on previous albums, he also takes over most of the bass tracks and even some of the drum tracks. That's not to say I don't love this album. There's some really great moments here, and even some songs that I would put next to nearly any of the band's previous material. I just feel that the album could have benefited as more of a band production, and maybe even with a little more time spent with Cherone before going into the studio to record it. Like Cherone had said once, maybe a tour or something to sort of get the fans used to him. Who knows? This album has plenty in the way of experimentation. Even the lead single, Without You, experiments with some sounds and is perhaps one of the band's heaviest tunes. There are times I feel that with this new lead singer, this should have invigorated the band and elevated this album to a top favorite for me. It could have been a really special affair. That being said, I do enjoy this disc. In fact, if you all knew that this ranks higher than 3 of the Roth-era albums for me, you might all be shocked and appalled. But to its credit, there is a lot of great material here. Though the lyrics are a bit cheesy on When I Want, it's also a killer tune with some amazing guitar work from Eddie. And Gary sounds pretty damn good here as well. From Afar is another tune that I really enjoy. It's a bit unlike anything the band had ever done, but again, I think there's a lot of experimentation going on here. I think it really works on this track. Some typical Eddie guitar shows up, especially the solo, and the drums are killer as usual. But it is different for the band. By the time I get to this track, and really on track 4, I'm sold on Cherone being in the band. He really complements this music beautifully. Dirty Water Dog is also a damn good tune if you like Phil Collins. It's a cool song, but I'm not sure it works for Van Halen. Once is also a great song. I enjoy it quite a bit. Fire in the Hole brings back that classic Van Halen hard rock sound, and even has Michael Anthony playing on the track, which, I mean, maybe that's why it sounds so much like classic Van Halen, because you definitely need Michael Anthony. Josephina is another song unlike anything the band had ever done, a power ballad that doesn't really get up to par with the Sammy era ballad, but it's a decent tune with some great vocals and melodies. I really enjoy it, and has some pretty amazing soaring vocals from Cherone, so I mean, it's not a bad tune. A Year to the Day is an epic tune at 8.5 minutes. It's a killer track. It could have been better with Michael Anthony on bass, but a great song, and perhaps Cherone's best performance on the disc. Some amazing guitar work here. The solos, the shredding, it's all just fantastic. Primary is a pretty damn good instrumental track, if very brief, that leads into Ballad the Bullet, which feels like a shred fest from the beginning, and the most Roth-era sounding track on the album. It has a heavy and at times almost sort of like a punk feel. It's a very cool song with one of Eddie's best ever guitar solos, in my opinion. This one should be talked about like a lot more. And that just leaves the Eddie vocal lead track. How many say I? This song takes a lot of crap from fans. People hate on it and just don't like it. I think it gets made fun of more than any Van Halen song, but you know what? I really enjoy it. I think the piano sounds great. The strings are fantastically done. And honestly, I sort of enjoy Eddie's low, sort of raspy vocal. It's definitely not a bad tune. Overall, I find this album to be a very good listen, and one that I come back to a couple times a year. And with as many CDs in my collection, that's not a bad thing. In fact, I play it fairly often when in relation to some of the other Van Halen albums. It's different, it's experimental, and it may not be exactly Van Halen from start to finish, but I like it. Comes off more as a Eddie solo album at times, but I think there are moments that are pure Van Halen band here, and like I said, I really enjoy it. And, well, that brings us to the end of the Gary Cherone era, and also to the end of the Michael Anthony era, as having only played 3 songs on this album, he was not invited back for the band's next album, where we bring somebody else back for a different kind of truth. Until next time, toodles.